What if a piece of our financial system, something you see every single day, just vanished? This isn't some hypothetical. We're about to break down the chaotic reality of the Great Penny Crisis of 2025.
Okay, so let's really think about this for a second. What if, tomorrow, you just couldn't get a penny? Not from the bank, not from a store, not anywhere. It's still legal tender, but the system to move it has just stopped. What happens next?
Well, back in 2025, that's pretty much exactly what happened. The US government made a decision that seemed perfectly logical, but it ended up triggering a financial meltdown in every single cash register across the country. Let's dig into how one simple choice led to so much chaos. Our story kicks off with a simple, really sensible goal: stop wasting money. The government looked at the humble penny and saw a massive financial leak. The decision to stop making them seemed like a no-brainer.
Now, this number right here, this is just wild. By 2024, it was costing the US Mint 3.69 cents to produce and distribute a coin that was only worth, well, 1 cent. That's nearly 4 times its face value, a loss driven by soaring metal and production costs.
This problem actually has a name: negative seigniorage. And this slide just nails the explanation. Imagine that bakery. That is exactly what the Treasury was doing, hemorrhaging over $85 million a year just from making pennies. So you can see why the administration decided to pull the plug.
And boy, did they move fast. In February of 2025, the order came down. By May, the metal supply was cut. By August, the Federal Reserve was already winding down penny-related services. And on November 12th, the very last penny officially rolled off the production line. A coin that had been in circulation since 1793 was basically gone in less than a year. But saving that money came at a cost nobody saw coming.
So the government saved a few $1,000,000, but at what cost? In their rush, they accidentally broke the hidden machinery that moves cash through our economy. Let's follow the trail of how this single decision set off a catastrophic chain reaction.
It all went down in 5 pretty clear steps. First, the mint cuts off the supply. In response, the Fed, which is kind of like the heart of the cash system, stops accepting and distributing pennies to manage its dwindling stock. This then forces commercial banks to stop taking penny deposits from businesses. I mean, where would they put them? That leads the armored truck companies to refuse to handle pennies, since it's just not profitable anymore. And the final result? A total logistical breakdown.
And here's the craziest part of the whole thing. This was never a crisis of supply. There were 114 billion pennies out there, in jars, in cars, under couch cushions. The problem was circulation. The system designed to recycle them from banks back to stores was completely paralyzed. The pennies were stranded right when a nationwide shortage was hitting.
So, how did this big, abstract, logistical failure actually affect people on the street? Well, for small business owners, it became a daily nightmare, where basic math suddenly became an impossible task.
This was the dilemma at every single checkout counter. Just picture it. The total comes to $10.63 after tax. The customer hands you $11. You owe them 37 cents, but you have no pennies. So what do? Do you give them 35 cents and short them? Or give them 40 cents and lose money yourself? Now imagine that problem hundreds of times a day.
And the financial hit was real and immediate. Quick Trip, a major convenience store chain, figured they'd lose $3 million a year from being forced to consistently round down to avoid legal trouble. For a small, family-run shop, that kind of loss is just devastating. But why couldn't they just round up sometimes?
And that brings us to the legal mess. The government stopped the penny, but failed to create any new rules for rounding. They just left businesses to navigate this treacherous patchwork of 50 different state laws, basically creating a legal minefield.
And this slide just perfectly captures that legal trap. The logical answer is to round to the nearest nickel, sometimes up, sometimes down. But the reality was, rounding up, even by a few cents, could be seen as overcharging under state consumer protection laws, opening businesses up to massive lawsuits.
And this just brilliantly illustrates the failure. When Canada got rid of their penny back in 2012, they established clear national rounding rules before they stopped production. The US did the exact opposite, stopped production first and left a legal vacuum, creating a crisis that was completely avoidable.
This whole mess was made worse by conflicting laws. You had states like Connecticut, where rounding up was illegal, forcing businesses to lose money. Then you had states like Massachusetts, where it was illegal to refuse to accept cash, so they couldn't even switch to card only.
On top of all that, federal food assistance programs had strict rules against treating cash transactions differently, adding yet another layer of legal jeopardy.
So, with the system gridlocked and businesses bleeding money, what was done to fix it? Let's look at the attempts to clean up the mess and what the long-term fallout is.
The first real step came months later. In January of 2026, the Federal Reserve finally reversed course and announced it would start accepting penny deposits from banks again. This was designed to get those billions of stranded pennies moving. It was a crucial move to fix the logistics, but it did absolutely nothing to solve the underlying legal trap of rounding.
And what's really fascinating here is that this whole crisis might just be a dress rehearsal. As this chart shows, the U.S. nickel now costs 13.8 cents to make. That's almost 3 times its face value. The very same economic logic that killed the penny is now pointing right at the nickel, threatening to repeat this whole chaotic cycle all over again.
Which leaves us with one final, critical question. The penny crisis wasn't just about coins, it was about the stability of cash itself. When we make physical money difficult, inefficient, or legally risky to use, we push society faster toward a purely digital future. So we have to ask, in that rush, who are we leaving behind?